Good morning. How the devil are you doing this fine day? Me? Well, I went to bed at about 10 o'clock last night, laced with night nurse, and I have to admit I'm feeling quite a bit better today. The cough's still persisting, I still sound a bit croaky, but the aches and pains appear to have gone, which is just as well, as this is just the beginning of a very long and intense day. In addition to this morning show, I'll be back here at 7 o'clock tonight for the second of our Caterpillar world premiere films with very special guest Caterpillar's Gilles Ronnet. If you tuned in last time, you know what good value Gilles is. So be sure to be here tonight at 7 o'clock. I also realise it does clash with the football, and that is especially inconvenient as Gilles is French and France are taking on Morocco tonight. That's just a mark of his dedication to duty, and mine as well, a little bit. And just one final thing before I press the big green go button. While I was clearing part of my office yesterday, I came across a rather nice microfiber cloth from our friends at Senebogen. I don't know if you can see that. There you go. It's a cloth. It's a cloth. What else can I tell you? I have no idea where it came from. I remember getting a pair of sunglasses at Balmer, but I don't remember getting that at all. Anyway, if anyone would like it to keep their glasses, their phone, or their camera lens clean, please type the word green, GREEN, into the chat, and we'll pick a winner. Because, where else could you win a cloth? It's all the big prizes here on the Breakfast Show. Now, let me roll the intro, post the question of the day, and get this show on the road. Welcome to the Breakfast Show. I'm your host, Mark Anthony. It is Wednesday, the 14th of December, and as that remarkably persistent guy just said, welcome to the Breakfast Show. I am your host, Mark Anthony. In today's show, Volvo puts its electric mini excavators to the test in a French convent, of all places. XCMG joins the electric telehandler race. We have a snippet of our brand new T4S Tech Foresights show that features the fine folks at Built Robotics over in San Francisco. We've got a sneak peek of something rather unexpected from ADT maker Bell, plus, far more importantly than all of that, Neil Edwards will be here to give us the lowdown on the current health of the UK construction industry. Will he send us into the Christmas break with a cracker of a report, or should we all dig out the festive sherry to help ease the pain? You'll have to tune in to find out. And we'll get to all that in just a second. But first, let's see who among the rich and the shameless will be celebrating a birthday on this day of days. Happy birthday! And it is many happy returns to astrologist and prophet Nostradamus. I wonder if he foresaw the rise and rise of the Breakfast Show and our ability to give away a cloth. And apparently today also marks the birthday of Felix the Cat. Happy birthday also to country singer Charlie Rich, to actress Lee Remick, singer Jane Birkin, and to tennis legend Stan Smith, to AC/DC bass player Cliff Williams, to Waterboys singer Mike Scott, singer Beth Alton, comedian Miranda Hart, goal machine Michael Owen, and to footballer Steve Sidwell. Many happy returns to them, one and all. If you wanted to put an electric mini excavator through its paces, where would you do it? Indoors, where the lack of emissions would be a real benefit? Near a school or a hospital where its near silent operation paid proper dividends? All good options, of course. But Volvo decided to go one better than that. They took their machine to a convent in the French Alps.
Hi everyone, today I'm here in this old convent at the bottom of the French Alps to tell you a little bit about the Volvo Construction Equipment Compact Excavators' latest release, the EC18 and ECR18 electric, and they're insane. Depending on application, you can get up to 6 and 5 hours of work respectively, and they're able to perform just as well as their diesel equivalent. For added flexibility, Volvo's developed a range of charging solutions that are of course fully compatible with the rest of the Volvo electric compact equipment range. But let's go check them out in action. This machine here is an ECR18 electric. As you can see, it's got the exact same dimensions as an ECR18E with an ultra short tail radius and it's got a 16 kilowatt-hour battery, allowing it to work between 2.5 hours and 5 hours, depending on duty cycle. On both machines, the hydraulic system's been readjusted to provide you with the speed and power you need exactly when you need it. For performance versus runtime ratio, this is a match made in heaven. Because it's electrically driven, you get an immediate response on each and every action you do, allowing you to work as precisely and sharply as you possibly can. And we wouldn't want to make technology a hassle to use, so machine interface is done through jog wheel controlled intuitive menus on a 5-inch high quality color display. In addition to being locally emission free, the EC18 electric and ECR18 electric are incredibly silent. I mean, listen to this. They emit a maximum of 80 decibel level of noise, 13 dB lower than a diesel machine. This means it would take 16 electric machines to be as noisy as only one diesel machine. So they can basically work in confined spaces, noise-sensitive times or areas without any restriction at all. In addition, they also vibrate less and are available with optional bio oil. Overall, they are more comfortable to the operator, to the people around the machine, and they cause less disturbance to wildlife and livestock. If you've ever worked near a beehive, you'll know what I mean. This one here is an EC18 electric. Just like its ECR18 electric sister, it has the exact same dimensions as the EC18E, but this one has a 20 kilowatt-hour battery, allowing it to work between 3 hours and 6 hours depending on duty cycle. The EC18 electric is even available with a true roomy heated cab, as well as a secondary accessory circuit. That all came with no compromise on quality! Machines are well protected with all-around steel panels recessed from the high-profile counterweights in the corners and the back, all-around flat windows, hydraulic hoses routed inside the boom, 50 hours greasing intervals, patented hydraulic filters, you name it. It's got it all. In order to keep you running for as long as you need, Volvo's developed various charging options. They come standard with Type 2 charging cable that can get your machine charged in 5 and 6 hours depending on your power outlet, and fast chargers, outdoor or indoor, that can get you back up to 80% in less than an hour. Hop into these machines and feel the difference. Their outstanding combined movement performance and their stability make them the true operator's choice. And of course, they're Volvo machines, which means they come with the complete package. Volvo dealer network, trained technicians, telematics data, attachments, breakers, Volvo financial services. This is a true one-stop shop deal. Trust me, you have to come to your local dealer and hear more about these.
That really is a break with convention. Convention? Convent? Oh, come on, people, work with me here. Look, we've had some comments. I love the predictability of all this. Whenever we show off an electric machine, we get the comments. Ken Hatcher, all this electric is okay, but the grid is on the limit now. Fair comment. Mick Norton, what is the price difference between Volvo ECR18 and the standard diesel equivalent? I don't know, but there is definitely a premium. And Mick Norton says, is that noise level quoted from inside or outside the cab? Don't know. I will check. I'll have a word with the fine folks at Volvo and see if I can come up with an answer. Does it infrared infrared cab heating? Not as far as I'm aware. So, just to give the anti-electric lobby something else to comment on, we'll be right back after this. Just going to give you a very quick reminder. If you see it across the bottom of the screen there, type the word green into the chat for your chance to win a Senebogen microfiber cloth that looks like that. And it looks like that too. Very good for cleaning your glasses. Well, I'm assuming it is. I don't know. It's still in the wrapper. I've never used it, but I'm assuming it is. Now, it is your final chance to enter that competition because we're drawing it very, very soon indeed. As you know, I spent a lot of time on the XCMG stand during Bauma 2022, and I was very impressed by their electric mini excavator and their hybrid crane. I realised some of the audience would have been less impressed with the electric mini excavator, but the Chinese manufacturer has now taken another step on the road to zero by unveiling a new electric telescopic handler.
XCMG XTF 18010E electric telehandler is a kind of heavy-duty construction equipment with high safety, mobility, efficiency, and multi-functions. The machine can achieve all axle steering, all-wheel drive, short turning radius, convenient transportation, equipped with 3 kinds of steering modes, and automatic frame leveling system, dual motor 4-wheel drive technology, strong cross-country power. It ensures excellent maneuverability for customers in complex road conditions. The machine uses lithium iron phosphate power battery with over 8-hour working time and double gum fast charging technology, which greatly shortens the charging time. It provides various attachments like container fixture, pipe clip, aerial platform, fork, bucket, hook block, and hydraulic breaker for choice, which ensures multiple purposes under harsh field working conditions. XCMG XTF 18010E electric telehandler is a great choice for multi-purpose construction operation.
Looks very smart, right? Not sure it'll be enough to appease those among us who believe that electric machines are doomed to failure. And on that subject, Ken Hatcher has just said, I'm not anti-electric. It's a really good idea as long as we have the electricity to charge it all. You're absolutely right, Ken. I'm feeling frivolous this morning. What can I tell you? Let me roll one of these. Let me just remind you very quickly, type the word green in the chat. You'll see why a little bit later. But after the next film, you've probably got about 5 minutes before we actually do the draw. So let me roll this and then we'll come back with a bit more.
Since the finance bill came into effect in April, the construction industry has seen a surge of fuel thefts. The rising cost of living has placed an additional risk of theft by employees and contractors, as well as opportunistic thieves. By using diesel dye and placing warnings of its use, you are sending a clear message that this is your fuel.
With the working year now quickly drawing to a close, our coverage of the Bauma 2022 exhibition is also beginning to dwindle. But we've still got a few more yet. If you've been watching this segment since Bauma ended, you will know that we've taken you around the stands of Liebherr, Komatsu, Doosan, and a whole host of others. You might have also noticed that we've so far missed one very big stand, Caterpillar. Well, we're about to put that right. Now, while that is the last of our Caterpillar coverage this morning, don't forget we'll be back at 7 p.m. this evening for a show that is dedicated to the world's largest construction equipment manufacturer, Caterpillar. In addition to premiering the second of Caterpillar's European demolition tour films, there'll be a chance to ask demolition specialist Gilles Ronnet questions, plus you could win one of 3 hydraulic breaker models from the mighty Caterpillar. So be sure to be tuned in this evening at 7 p.m. Speaking of prizes, don't forget, type the word green into the chat. I think we've had 3 entries so far, but that one's going to close very, very soon indeed. The first ever episode of our brand new show drops this week. Available in both video and audio formats, the new show is called Tech Foresights, or T4S for short. Now, our patrons over at patreon.com/demolition news already have access to the show. Everyone else will have to wait until Friday when it lands cross-platform on YouTube, Spotify, Facebook, Instagram, Apple Podcasts, anywhere else that you like to watch, listen, tune in. But just to whet your appetite, I'm going to give you a very quick preview right about now.
Construction is a very interesting industry because what we've had historically is a declining productivity curve for the past 50 or so years, whereas other industries have actually increased productivity through technology. And construction has been one of the few that have not really embraced or taken advantage of what technology offers. And so we're facing sort of historic problems in construction around labor, around productivity, around costs, around speed, around safety. And so these are all things that technology like robotics can really help address. And that's why things like automation, machine learning, artificial intelligence, robotics are really poised to help construction become an efficient, productive sector once again.
That decline in productivity it comes as quite a surprise. Is that down to sort of a conservatism within the industry, just a failure to grasp what technology can bring to the party?
Yeah, I think what we've seen is the general consensus is that construction is against change. They don't quite get technology, but that's actually incorrect. I think construction, if anything, they're usually some of the first to use the most powerful kinds of tools. They're always eager to improve efficiency. They're always obsessed with safety. But the reality is that construction workers also have to lean on what works, and they need to meet deadlines. They need to rely on what is effective. So you have 2 opposing forces. On one hand, they recognize the importance of the best tools for their talented workers. On the other hand, they also need to lean on what they know and what will achieve predictable results. So it's hard for them. They're kind of stuck in an interesting place where it's hard for them to experiment and work with technologies, which is why it's important when you're developing advanced technologies to make sure that they're easy to adopt, they work in existing workflows, and they're kind of low capital investment, so it's easy to test and deploy.
When you do get around to seeing the full show, please let me know what you think. Be interested to see your feedback on that. We've got the second episode in the can already. That one features JCB and all things hydrogen, and that will probably drop early in the new year now, so watch this space. If you find the notion of autonomous machines fascinating, terrifying, or somewhere between the two, you might want to stick around. But first of all, let's very quickly find out who won, well, a staggering prize of a cloth. We have had 4 entries, and I'm going to roll the draw now to find out who is the winner. Gary Muirhead, way up in Scotland. Gary, I can tell you now, congratulations. It won't do much to keep you warm in the Scottish winter because it is basically the size of a handkerchief. But Gary, that will be in the post on its way to you later this morning. Congratulations on winning a cloth. I bet you can barely contain your excitement right about now. We're just going to squeeze in one very quick item before we welcome the star of the show onto the screen. Apparently, those fine folks over at Bell can foresee a time in which some of its ADTs will no longer require an operator. Take a look at this. Yeah, I know it's only a sneak preview. We'll do our best to bring you more details just as soon as Bell release them, basically. Now, Neil Edwards, head of Builders Conference, has been waiting patiently in our green room for plenty long enough now. So while I get him on the screen, here is his theme tune. Good morning, Neil.
Good morning, Mark. How are you?
I'm remarkably chipper, actually. I woke up this morning expecting to have no voice and have got one. That's a good start to the day. How about you?
Yeah, it's not too bad. It's a little bit chilly around the edges, isn't it?
It is.
But yes, it's good. All good. Thank you very much.
Good. Well, while we're on the subject of good, and I'm going to say the next bit with my fingers crossed, Neil Edwards, head of Builders Conference, what are the scores on the doors?
I think you've got to, using your analogy, run for the sherry glass this morning. November wasn't a very good month at all for the construction project awards. We only just passed the 3 billion mark. So it was a little bit of a month where people definitely listened to the budget or the mini budget or the financial review, whatever you want to call Mr. Hammond standing up in Parliament did. And a lot of people took a huge intake of breath and said, oh, hold on, what's going to happen? So it wasn't a very good month at all, unfortunately.
Not what I wanted to hear, but I can't say I'm entirely surprised. And ultimately, I think it's worth remembering that November is usually the start of the end of year decline anyway. So I think the combination of, as you say, the mini budget or the financial statement plus the wind down to the end of the year, that was always going to have an effect anyway, wasn't it?
It was, yeah. It's yes, that's going to be one of the big things. Really, is how we're going to cope for the future. Yeah, definitely.
Now, we've had a couple of questions. We've had the usual one about how is Wales doing, but we've had one more specific here from Peter Haddock over at Content with Media. A question for Neil, please, Mark. Are we seeing any big splits between infrastructure and house building coming through and the Canary Wharf announcement of building labs instead of offices? Will this see a new approach to investment outside offices? It's a multi-layered question, and I'll leave you to mull that one over.
Thank you. Well, I can answer it. You'll actually see that Canary Wharf contractors are top of the tree this month on the table, and that's because of that specific project in where is it? It's actually Project Ultra redevelopment of North Quay site. The proposal for the North Quay will deliver up to 355,000 square meters of floor space. With a range of usage which could include offices and life science, residential, retail, community, leisure, hotel, co-living and student accommodation. So yeah, Canary Wharf have picked that one up. So that's a huge project. You know, that's £1 billion project. So that is great news for London. But the rest of the infrastructure projects, I think Mr. Hammond has more likely asked a lot of the relevant departments within the government to revise, relook and rethink what they actually want, and more likely ask them to come up with a key priority list. And even that key priority list of new infrastructure projects may not mean they actually get the ultimate green light. It's a little bit worrying. I think the next 18 months or a year especially will prove in the public domain, public sector spending a little bit more challenging. So if businesses are very much aligned to those, they may wish to look further afield in the short term, not the long term. The long term is always good because we're always looking to try and improve our infrastructure throughout the UK. But in the short term, there might be a hiatus of actually starting new projects.
that Canary Wharf project is a bit of a double-edged sword in some ways, isn't it? £1 billion, fantastic, but when the entire industry only just scraped past 3 billion, without that, we really would be looking at probably the worst result in, I'm going to take a stab at 5 or 6 years, possibly even more than that.
I would suggest even further than that, maybe 10 years, Mark.
Yeah.
To be honest with you, it has been a quite significant month, and it's not helped by the inflation that we have within the UK economy. I know it's gone down slightly in the last thing today. I think it's just under 11%, but it's still way above what we're used to. And there is some chatter around today that obviously the Bank of England will increase interest rates from 3 to 3.5%. And I know that doesn't sound a great deal, but that's going to add another added pressure on people's wages that they receive and their pockets. So yes, yes, it's definitely, well, I think we said last month, are the storm clouds gathering? They might be a little bit further forward. Let's hope not. Let's hope a strong wind comes from somewhere. But at this present moment in time, I haven't seen that in the forecast.
Yeah, we will get on to the facts and figures in just a second. But I think it was Construction Inquirer this morning, reporting that average operative wages in London now are around about £1,000 a week. That's a sign of the inflation, surely.
It is, and that's only going to put added pressure on construction businesses and subcontractors and the whole supply chain to actually commit to the orders that they've actually already signed, sealed. So yeah, there's going to be a squeeze going forward. So yeah, it's going to be, as I say, a time when people are going to be looking at everything, and cost is going to be one of the major things.
I'm just going to throw this up from Jim Turner. Jim Turner says, I'd say the house building sector has been pretty stagnant for a number of years. By now, we should be building timber frame sectional homes with brick outer skin solar roofs in individual soakaways where possible, always using the roof space as living space. It seems all things that are constantly moaned about are ignored, even though they could be addressed easily and cheaply. Stagnant, it seems such a crazy thing to say, given the fact that the house building sector has largely propped up the wider industry for what, 4 or 5 years now?
It has, yeah. I think what has happened is it hasn't it's supported the construction industry, but it hasn't exceeded what it should do. If you look at it really in a micromanagement type of way, to reach the targets of this 350,000 new units a year, we're nowhere near that, and probably innovation hasn't come forward because we're so as people in the UK, we're so in tune with our brick built houses, and innovation of timber framed, etc., has not been embraced by as many. It still has this somewhat concerning thought process. I think that will change, and I think that is changing, but there are still a lot of people that will ask that question: is it timber framed? And that is that is probably where we're at. People need to change their perception. And your piece just before this about your new show, Mark, it sounds fantastic, because innovation does need to be brought into the construction industry, and it just isn't in products, and it isn't in machinery. It's also in technology that supports all those added parts of the industry, and that could be just even in offices and how you actually look at projects and how you think about projects going forward.
Yeah, I mean, funnily enough, that I promise this is the last thing I want to say before we get on to the facts and figures, but that was one of the things, the real standout, which is why I used it as the hook on that snippet there. The fact that in construction, we've actually seen a decline in productivity. You think about all the fancy equipment we've got, all the advanced systems that are available to us, but productivity has actually declined. Just seems absolutely remarkable in this day and age.
Yeah, and exactly right. And your guest speaker on that had it nailed on. Exactly it. We do like new toys, and that's what we do like, but we need to be more embracing. And I'm just looking at the chat that or the comments that Jim's coming through. Part of that is, yes, we need a serious shake-up. We need things to be looked at, and that probably needs groups within businesses from a younger generation, and I'm going to be very generalized here, but a younger element on focus groups within major businesses to say, no, we shouldn't be doing that, we should be doing this. But it's going to take a lot to change the people at the top's mind when they're only used to saying, right, I know how to do this, I know how to do this, and I know it's going to return this. There's still an unknown of how much money they're going to get for this new innovation. But they could be world leaders in the end of the day if people change, or leaders in everything.
The interesting thing is, I'm sorry, I've taken you out the stream there. That's better. The interesting thing is, I was on an open day with Leica and Skanska a couple of weeks, well, maybe a couple of months ago now, and they had a lot of apprentices there who were there to see sort of the latest technology, and these guys just revel in it.
Yes,
I don't revel in it like, oh, that would be handy. It was like, we're using this. We've embraced this. This for us. This is the norm. I think. Unfortunately, we have to wait for people of my age to sort of fall off the end of the conveyor belt before that revolution truly takes place.
100%, absolutely 100%. We need that, as Jim keeps putting in there. We need innovation. We need a serious shake-up, and we don't have to change it. I think we don't need a revolution, we need an evolution, but that evolution isn't coming quick enough somewhat in the construction industry. And I always bang on about it and everything else. With transparency of things, we're always frightened that what comes with transparency is accountability. And that's, because the traditional methods of building, where we've known it's like this, etc., etc., etc. If you put something else that is innovative beside it, and it changes your profit margin considerably for the better, there is always going to be that question from somebody saying, well, you've built this for the last 20 years like that. Why didn't you innovate it 10 years beforehand? And that's the problem. That's the thing. You've got to have people who are brave to do this.
Right. Well, speaking of brave, I'm going to put my brave pants on now and ask you about the top five. We already know that Canary Wharf is at the tippity top. Was that exactly 1 billion, that one?
It was stated as 1 billion. And that will obviously keep London very, very busy over the next few years, I should think. And I should think there'll be plenty of knock-ons from that. And there will be infrastructure around that project just to service the site itself. So yeah, that's a great project. Number 2 this month is ISG. Now, ISG, they've picked up the new build Hollywood studio to be named Sunset Studios, which is in Broxbourne, obviously in around that neck. ISG will deliver a fast-track 2-year construction program consisting of the concurrent building of 4 main hubs. So it's a huge, great studio for films, television programs, and everything else. And I believe that's part of what the British government looked at some years ago, that to have tax breaks within the UK for the film industry. So that's one of the projects that has ultimately come out from the government's initiative. I can't remember how long ago it was, but it was an initiative to give production companies tax breaks for doing films in the UK. So yeah, number 2 on the list is ISG, and that project's worth 500 million. Number 3 on the list is Hill Group. Now they're looking at producing. This is for the Peabody Group ultimately, and it's the Hill Group entered into a JV with the Peabody for the regeneration around Dagenham, and this project's worth 200 million. It's initially said we've got down here of 935 dwellings, and it's in different plots as well. But the actual build will be done by the Hill Group, but it is funded as well. I think, from what I can read or been told, is the fact that the Hill Group have also part funded this project as well with Peabody. So yeah, £200 million project in Dagenham. Number 3 on the list is Balfour Beatty, and the largest. Is it 3 on the list? Oh, sorry, fourth on the list. Sorry, is Balfour Beatty, and they've picked up the largest. Is £108 million there, and that is for a new dual carriageway from the M67 junction roundabout to the new junction of the A57, and it's called the A57 Link Road Woolly Bridge. So that project's worth 108 million, and the client is National Highways. So that is an infrastructure job that has still got its green light, but we haven't seen many others from there. And finally, fifth on the list is CRH Group. Now they are, strangely enough, the two projects that they've picked up this month are for their Farron's construction arm, and they're both to do with water treatment. And this one, the one I'm going to talk about here, is in Norfolk. This is a £50 million project in Norfolk. Now, I think the other one is in Durham. But I did see in the press this week that CRH Group are looking to sell the Farron's part of their business as well. So, but they're fifth on the list this month.
You mentioned sale. I was going to come on to this later, but as you've kind of led me into a nice segue there. We've just seen the sale of Jewson, and we've just seen the sale of Mick George Group as well.
Yes.
And before I get onto that, Mick Norton has just said house builders here in the M62 corridor laying off workers. Is this a national trend? Businesses being sold, workers being laid off. Is it time for another Sherry yet?
Well, it was, yeah, and one of the other things that we saw in the press this week was Berkeley Homes, which is obviously one of the tier one house builders or spec housing contractors within the UK. They are looking to slow down the number of units that they're actually producing. So now that could be double-edged, because it's great, because then if they slow down, there's not enough units on the marketplace, then actually the price goes up because obviously supply and demand. But ultimately, no, that's not good news. So yes, I think we all should be looking at maybe buying, that second bottle of Harvey's Bristol Cream maybe this time, rather than the sherry. Go a little bit off track, But it's a little bit worrying, and we kind of saw this really in the last 3 or 4 months. We all knew that we've somehow got to pay for what was gone on in 2020 and 2021 with the furlough schemes and all of those sort of things. We all knew that was coming on the horizon, but I don't think we all hoped that it wouldn't actually occur so quickly. And I think the catalyst for the problem that has ignited the problem even further is obviously the Ukraine issue, the Ukraine and Russian issue. So it's just put everybody on edge across the world. It just isn't the UK, it's across the world.
Yeah, we've had another question in from our friend Mick Norton. Neil, the government recently withdrew the long-standing Help to Buy product, which assisted first-time buyers getting a foot on the property ladder. What do you think of the Chancellor's controversial decision? I'm not going to put words in your mouth, but certainly pulling the rug out from under the strongest bit of the UK construction sector does seem like a bit of a strange idea.
I've only got one word: disaster.
Yeah, that pretty much wraps it up, I think. Okay, on to other points. I was going to do sectors of the industry first, but I couldn't help notice that the top 5 was very, very, very southern-centric. What are the regions looking like?
Yes, very, very, very southern-centric. Well, the Welsh offering. Let's start off with that. Is the Welsh area have this month gone over, what is it? It's about 63 million, and the Scottish region is 36. So definitely going down for the Scots, but the Welsh is maintaining a level. Yes, London is at over £1 billion with that huge, great project for obviously East London, and the Hertfordshire. So you could say that's home counties. Hertfordshire has got that huge project for ISG, so that's £500 million. The Northwest, 230, but the others are all struggling through that process, and it hasn't been a very good month across any of the regions really this month, and that also translates itself into sectors itself. Now, because of the project in East London being mixed development, we've put it on that side of the world. So miscellaneous is over £1 billion this month, but the likes of house building is only just £667 million. And entertainment and leisure is 500 million with that new studios, obviously in Hertfordshire, but the rest of them are all still bumbling along. And more concerning than anything is obviously education, where we look at, and that hasn't even reached 100 million this month, and that probably is a number of authorities are just saying, local authorities are saying, let's hold off a minute. I've got to see my budgets for 2023. I've got to agree them. And it's an economic nightmare for councils, because they do need, local authorities do need more money to come in, but obviously trying to squeeze that out of the public that are actually paying more and more on the high street for everything. It's not that easy.
No, absolutely. I'm just going to throw that up there. Gary Muirhead said, Merry Christmas,
Thank
Happy
you,
New
Gary.
Year when it comes, Neil. Yeah. I'm looking forward to the new year even more now.
Yes, exactly.
Just on that subject, just thinking out loud here, and I've lost my train of thought. No, it's gone. It's gone. I will come back to what I was about to say, but it does feel pretty uncomfortable right about now, doesn't it?
Yes, I think we should all look very closely. You know, how many times have you and I met and said about sort of like fixing the roof while the sun is shining? You know, I really do hope that many businesses have got that and have been doing that over the last 5-6 years. And that is back to your technology. I hope they've been investing in technology so their productivity can be increased. And so therefore margins can hopefully be maintained, even though there's going to be a squeeze up with inflation. My fear is that we haven't done enough of that innovation and putting into development of new systems and procedures. So that's my fear.
Trying to put a positive spin on things, and this was where my train of thought was going. Off the top of my head, I can't remember when the next general election is due, but you would have to think that the start of the countdown will be sometime next year, which would normally mean that the purse strings get loosened on things like roads and rail and hospitals and schools. You know, the same old predictable things that every government in the history of man has ever done. We're looking at a bad situation at the moment, but we could be looking at a loosening of the purse strings at some point next year, maybe.
I think so. By the time the budget comes round next year, next April. I was actually in the car yesterday. I believe yesterday was 3 years to the day that Boris Johnson entered office as our new Prime Minister following a general election. So there's 2 years left from yesterday, I think, because obviously it's a 5-year term. So I think by April, Philip Hammond will have a greater handle on the finances of the UK finances. Whether he'll let a little bit go over the next year, I don't know. It will be, do they already believe that they can't win the next general election? That's one thing. And therefore get the house in order, or will they just go for it and leave the same note in the drawer, maybe if they do lose it, to say there's no money left in, we've spent all the money.
Is a worry. Let's have a look. Peter Haddock has just said, I have a great podcast on how Bell Contracting has been investing in the future, as Neil just said. Here it is. Where? Peter, we still need the link, but please fire that up. I called a bit of it, and I will certainly watch the rest. Just on that subject, Peter actually did an interview with, was it Peter Bell, on his podcast. I actually listened to that on my way up, funnily enough, to meet Peter not so long ago. Top job. So go and take a listen to that.
Yeah, I do think people that have invested, like Bell's, then they will definitely be ahead of the game.
Yeah, there you are. That is the link. It is the same podcast that I listen to. There you are. You can get it on Spotify, on Anchor, and on Apple Podcasts as well. Go give it a listen. It really is top value. So when all is said and done, Neil, are you going into Christmas downbeat, fearful, or are you just thinking, actually, this is probably just an end of year glitch, post mini budget statement, wind down to Christmas, it'll all be all right on the night?
There's a difference between head and heart here, Mark. My heart wants to say it will all be okay in the new year, and let's go for it. The facts, regretfully, do not bear that out in mind at this present moment in time. So I'm going to have splinters and say I think it's going to be okay. But do remember, some of those projects that we were speaking about in July, August and September, they will be 6 months before they start. So that will be okay for the year. We're talking now for projects, obviously, that are going to probably start in around June, July, August next year. So we have got time to sort things out if we try and do things better. But yes, there will be a upsurge. There is no doubt in January and February, because it always will be. Maybe we're taking an early break because the last 2 years Christmas periods have been broken by obviously COVID. So this is really this is where my heart is trying. This is probably the first time we are all allowed out to go for a cocktail party, Christmas lunch, etc., without fear of doing anything else. So yeah, let's keep our fingers crossed for the new year.
Mick Norton has just said there would appear to be zero chance of this or any incoming government meeting housing targets. Underwhelmed. I'll throw this over to you in a second, Neil, but I can tell you I've been writing about the target for house building for 33 years. And in 33 years, we never hit it once. not once. This is the same as it ever was. Neil, your belief?
Exactly. And then you get these, the new minister or housing for housing and levelling up, Mr. Gove, then saying, I think we should investigate house builders. What for? What do we need to investigate? What are you implying by that investigation? I would like to know your thought process, isn't it? And it's the same as when you recently, I think a couple of months ago, 3 or 4 months ago, spoke about the demolition of certain buildings were being challenged by the eco sector. And I think demolition was one of the most is one of the best eco thought processes going forward. So all you're doing with these bland statements, once they're out there, not bland, but once they're out there, you cause concern within the marketplace, and it is totally and absolutely unhelpful.
Well, it goes back to what we were saying earlier, that there does seem to be this disconnect between industry and government. When you think that the UK construction industry employs, 2 million people, thereabouts? It's a major contributor to GDP. I can never remember the figure. I know you know it. If you put £1 into construction, you get
£1.64.
Thank you very much. You get £1.64 back to the national economy. And yet, and furthermore, it was construction that led the UK through the pandemic. No lockdown, key worker status, carried on regardless, led us out of post-pandemic recession, and yet subsequent governments have done their level best to pull the rug out or chop us off at the knees at every available opportunity. It seems crazy to me. As I say, it just seems to be a complete disconnect between us and them.
It does, and it needs probably some people with, once again, rather than industry-led, rather than economically led and government-led. It really does need a whole shake-up from top to bottom. But until we, I don't know, until we recognise that, I think under GDP, the British economy, the GDP for construction is round about between 8 and 9%. So it's a huge element to the actual UK economy. So I don't know. I have my own views, but they're for myself.
We have some more comments and questions. Mick Norton says, I would investigate house builders for their obscene glut of acquired land and sitting on their acquisitions for years purely to please their shareholders. It's hard to argue with that one, I have to say.
Yes, Mick has hit the nail. That's what I think Mr. Gove is looking at, is to say that these larger tier 1 spec housing developers have probably got a land bank that's large. However, what I would say is they have more likely bought those at top level, thinking they may get an extra few units on those sites to cover the increased costs, etc., for the construction of the building, of the houses, etc. And the local authorities planning is very strict and doesn't always allow for those extra few units. And I have a perfect example just down the road here, where Redrow Homes were going to build Initially, it was 89 units on an old brewery site, and it took, I think, in the end of the day, 7 years for the first unit or the first units to come to market, because Redrow wanted to increase it to 94 units or 95 units to make it more cost effective, and the council said no. So you've got to wait also. So for 7 years there was no tax, so no council tax coming in, etc. And in the end of the day, they built 92 units. So it's a delicate balance, and I do understand it, because local opinion of the NIMBYism is very strong. So it's so difficult. But to have a land bank is not always because they're just sitting on it to make sure. There is undoubtedly something in that, but there is also something in that the local authorities don't wish to add an extra 2 or 3 units on there because they're up for general election or they're up for election within the local areas. And it's just gridlocked. It's totally and absolutely gridlocked.
On that subject, Jim Turner says, if homes were partly built in a factory environment, then the turnaround from breaking ground to selling a home could be a lot shorter. Therefore, investors wouldn't need to wait as long for the return and could possibly mean the same profit and cheaper homes. I think we have started to see a bit of a rise in off-site construction, haven't we? But nowhere near to the level that I would have anticipated, and certainly nowhere near the level that you've seen in Scandinavia and Germany and that sort of place.
No, and I don't understand sometimes why we don't plonk ourselves over there for a period of time to see how the actual system works in a better way. But we also have this thing that, this is my own opinion, so it is in my opinion, that councils do not like standardization, and they like the aesthetics, and architects like aesthetics of certain developments, etc. Whereas what comes with obviously pre-manufactured elements is standardization. And I went to Iceland, I've been to Iceland, I've been to Sweden and places like that. A lot of the units are very similar. Whereas in the UK, we have that individuality. And that's also partly driven by the buyer as well, because we don't want to all be living in the same thing.
I think there's possibly a hangover as well. Having grown up in London in the 70s, they were called prefabricated homes, and prefabs were the cheapest of the cheap and were treated accordingly. What we're talking about now, obviously, I mean, a prefabricated home. I mean, in actual fact, some of the prefabricated homes that I've seen overseas, they are the sort of thing you would love. You'd give your right arm to live in them. They are absolutely gorgeous.
And square footage, they're a great deal better than the ones that because in the UK, we are slowly getting smaller and smaller in our houses, because that's the way of reducing costs rather than being, productivity. We're reducing the size of the units to an absolute bare minimum. So we're living in more and more rabbit hutches. But what is absolutely magnificent about timber framed houses is their ecology level. They're to heat and to run a house which is timber framed is so much better than a traditional brick and block building.
Yeah, again, it goes to show, I just think there's a lack of foresight in this country, because here, if you want solar panels, you have to go out and buy, I don't think any house builders are actually building as standard with solar panels or anything like that. Everything is an extra. Yet with these, as you say, the timber framed or the prefabricated, they do seem to come like a Japanese or a Korean car. They come with all mod cons, don't they?
Yes. And efficiency wise, when we're struggling to pay our bills and everything else because of the current, climate, not the climate issues, but the actual fuel issues, etc. What a way to go. Let's not pay £2,000 or £3,000 a year on our electricity and gas. Let's do something a little bit better. And that's
right. Well, I'm going to draw a line in the sand for this. I can't say you've cheered me up at all.
Sorry about that.
But having said all that, as I say, I am taking all of this with a pinch of salt, because it is the end of the year, and the end of the year is traditionally a bit of a slowdown anyway. What have you got planned for Christmas yourself, Neil?
This year, I'm staying at home. I'm not doing one of my normal jaunts across the Atlantic to where I lived before, over in the warmer places in the world and in the Caribbean. So, yes, I'm staying at home, and I'm I'm swapping the sunny beaches of the Caribbean, and I'm going to Canberra Sands for 4 days.
I don't believe you'll be able to tell the difference, apart from the gale force winds and the anoraks and stuff.
I'm looking forward to it.
Yes, I
No,
bet.
I am.
No,
So that's
I'm
mine.
sure it'll be fine. It's one of my favourite places to walk the dogs, I have to say.
And do you know what? I've never been, so therefore it is somewhere I can now tick off the bucket list to say that I've been to Canberra Sands.
Can you imagine somebody having a bucket list with Canberra Sands on it? It's like the sort of guy that gives away a cloth as a star prize.
Yeah, I was thinking of putting the word green, and I'm thinking, what am I going to do with it?
I'm not entirely sure what Gary Muirhead's going to do with it, but hey, I'm more than happy to send it to him. Neil, it's been an absolute pleasure, as always. Hopefully, when we speak next, which will be early in the new year, I'm back, just so you know, I'm back on the 4th of January. I'm not sure when you'll be back. I'm just going to throw this up. Have a great Christmas, Neil, says Peter Haddock.
Thank you, Peter.
Thank you for your feedback. God willing, things will pick up 2023. Canberra sounds beautiful, says Mick Norton. So there you are. You're okay. It'll be okay. So yeah, hopefully when we pick up in the new year, hopefully things will have settled a little bit. Fingers crossed.
Yeah, definitely.
Alrighty, Neil, it's been a pleasure. I'll speak to you very soon.
Okay, I'll speak to you soon as well. Goodbye.
And there we are. As I say, can't say we've ended on a positive note particularly, but always good to see Neil and to actually get the facts as they are. That pretty much wraps up the main part of this morning's show. I will roll the outro in just a second, although I realise a lot of people will have to get back to work. But I'm going to leap gazelle-like over into the chat to see what you're all saying today. If you can't stick around for that, then please stay safe. Look after yourself, your family, your friends, and your colleagues. Have a great day. Stay warm. Please tune in tonight for myself and, far more importantly, Gilles Ronnet from Caterpillar. If you have the time and the inclination, I'll see you on the other side of this. Chat, but I'm well aware of the fact that anyone that was asking questions early doors has probably long since left. I think we addressed most of the questions that were raised for Neil, but I'm going to rattle through very quickly. Nick Drew, morning, brass monkeys. It is cold out there. It is very cold. I have to say, it is a bit warmer here today than it was yesterday. We do have a bit of blue sky and a bit of sunshine poking through, but the snow that we had, 3 days ago, hasn't shifted at all. My garden is still completely white. Has some dog footprints in it, but it is still there. Hasn't moved at all. Gary Muirhead, our big winner, our big winner today, who goes away with the green cloth. Oh boy, are we ever scratching the bottom of the prize barrel now? It's minus 12 in Glasgow this morning. Just as well they build them tough up in Glasgow, I'd say, Gary, but congratulations anyway. Dan Cullen says, as he always says on a Wednesday, happy hump day. A happy hump day to you as well, Dan. Thank you very much indeed for being here. Ken Hatcher is obviously feeling the chill as well down in Welsh Wales. Morning, Ken. Thank you for being here as well. As I say, we had a few entries there. There's Dan Cullen's entry. We had lots of questions for our question of the day for Neil Edwards. Nick Drew also entered. Sorry, Nick, you missed out this time, and I don't know quite how you'll make it through the rest of the day, having lost out on the cloth. Lee Upton, I'm not sure if he's still here, but Lee Upton was here from Upton Demolition. Morning, Lee, and morning to the Upton Demolition crew. Many thanks indeed for joining us. Mick Norton is in the house, and Mick received his Caterpillar breaker model from the last world premiere yesterday. No idea why it took as long to get there. Postal strikes, I guess, but it made it in the end. I'm hoping we've got 3 to give away tonight. If you win one tonight, they will be in the post tomorrow, assuming I've got your address, or assuming you can get me your address. Hopefully you will receive them in time for Christmas. I don't know why you'd need them for Christmas unless you want to actually give them to somebody else as a Christmas gift, but I will do my level best to get them to you this side of the festivities. Jim Turner was here as well. Morning, Jim. Thank you very much indeed for joining us. I don't know if you got to hear the music on the Caterpillar stand walk around, but that was chosen specifically for you. all this electric is okay, but the grid is on the limit now. Yeah, I as I say, when I was writing the script for today's show, I already knew that a mention of not one but two different electric machines would rattle people's cages. And I think Ken has a very, very good and very, very valid point. If you go back to, I think JCB said that they actually produced their first commercially available electric mini excavator in 2019. If you go back to the electricity prices of in 2019, an electric machine would have been a superb idea. Yes, it cost more than the diesel version, but it would have been a superb idea. You would have saved yourself a small fortune on fuel, and you would have been operating nice and quietly, emissions free. Then you stir into the mix COVID, you stir into the mix the conflict in Ukraine, energy crisis, and everything else, and all of a sudden electric is looking slightly less attractive, and I guess that's why it came third in our top 4 countdown of future fuels. A long way. I think off the top of my head, I think it went hydrogen at 41%, diesel remarkably at 40%, and electric with 12%, which is my maths is right. That's 81, 93%, which left HVO 7%. So there you are. Gary Muirhead, despite all the reservations about electric machines, that is so quiet. It really is a very quiet machine. I've had the good fortune of operating one of those, poorly obviously, but yeah, absolutely silent. What is the price difference? I don't know. One of the things that I discovered very early doors when I started writing about plant is that manufacturers don't talk prices with us, because obviously the price will vary from country to country, from region to region, sometimes from dealer to dealer, but it will also be reflected on volume of sale. So if you buy one, it's one price, you buy 10, it's a different price, and so on down the line. We don't get to hear prices. All I can tell you is, as it stands at the moment, electric machines carry a price premium. That's all I can tell you. And I can't answer that one either. I would like to think it was outside the cab, because that's where the real benefit is, but I don't know. Rattling through. There is, Ken, there is. And I like me a cat excavator. I like me a cat wheel loader. But when you see up close a cat dozer, particularly one of the bigger ones, D9, D10, D11, or you see one of their big off-highway trucks, 777 and above, there is, as Ken rightly put it, there's something about a cat. There really is. I don't know what it is. There is that, as the French would say, and I'm practicing ahead of seeing Gilles René tonight, there is a certain je ne sais quoi, is there not, about a Caterpillar machine. Some kit that Caterpillar. Wow, yeah. I'll let you into a little secret here. We've been working our way through all of the footage that we shot from Bauer. We had some commitments to manufacturers to get some out early doors. We had other commitments that were so where we had no specific requirement. But somehow the footage from the Caterpillar stand, you know, the footage from the biggest manufacturer in the world got buried. That's the absolute truth. It got buried. If we were doing it in order of priority, it would have been number 1 or number 2, instead of which it was about number 45. And I don't need to apologise, because Caterpillar aren't paying me to do it, but I don't know how we missed it. It just got pushed to one side, and we never got around to it. We can finally show you what the Bauer stand looked like from the mighty Caterpillar, and as Gary Muirhead says, very impressive display. It really was, and that wasn't all of it. There were a few machines parked outside as well. Thank you very much indeed for that, Peter. I'm not treading on your toes, because you do that bit better than I do, but I'm edging up towards the very tips of your toes with the plans for the new show. And I have to say, learned a lot over the last few years about audio and video and production value and all of that kind of thing. And we have pulled out the stops on the new show. We've outsourced the intro for it. We've got voiceovers in it, and it does look very good. The actual meat of the show is not dissimilar to this format, because I mean certainly the first one was recorded remotely. I was here in the UK, and Errol Ahmed, my interviewee, was over in San Francisco. The second episode, which is with Tim Burnhope and Lee Harper from JCB, that was actually filmed face to face, so there's a difference there as well. But we really are trying to push the quality on this. The shows will be that little bit longer. I think the interview with Errol Ahmed is the best part of 20 minutes long. I think the JCB episode is the best part of 15 minutes long. So if you've got a journey and you want to listen to something vaguely interesting, we've got you covered. But if you want to sit down and actually consume sort of 20 minutes, half an hour of good quality content, then hopefully we've got you covered there as well. We've had new comments. I'm going to answer this one. Dan, I don't think they even exist anymore. Don't give up all hope. I'm going to have a reshuffle of this office over the new year period. So between shows and between scripting and various other bits and pieces, I am gradually moving things around and putting stuff in the bin and what have you. And the place where I thought the USB sticks might reside, they're not there. They may be somewhere else. You can't see it, but down there is a big cupboard that's full of stuff. And it is literally one of those cupboards, if you open the door, stuff falls out. It's full of stuff. They may be in there. If they are in there, I can turn this off, by the way. If they are in there, I will dig them out, and you will be a proud recipient of all of those. But the place where I expected them to be is not the place that they are. Dan says we're back to coal before you know it, and they're opening a new pit in the Midlands. Nothing like a backtrack, is there? Jim Turner, I know how I bang on about how bad the housing development is, but the whole setup needs reform. People can't buy or appreciate what isn't on offer. People can't afford to get on the housing market as there isn't enough on offer that's affordable. If people could be a small prefab sectional home in a nice area, than they would. Then as they as a family grow and they get more financially stable, they could add to that home without having to move. You're dead right. I haven't seen him for a while. I used to follow a guy on YouTube who had built one of these, what do they call them, tiny homes, and he based it upon basically a shipping container. That was the starting point. And he'd been gifted some land down in the Surrey countryside. The hoops he had to jump through. The land was privately owned and it was gifted legally. The house that he was planning to build met all the necessary regulations. But man alive, rather than you might expect the permission to take a few months, it took a couple of years. He had multiple inspections, multiple changes. There are so many obstacles. And I think one of the issues that we're going to have to address, and I know if anybody's been watching this show for any length of time, is a question that I've raised before with Neil Edwards. I think it's fair to say that unless something completely radical happens, our high streets are dying. I've got a couple of high streets fairly close to me, Epsom, which is that way, Sutton, which is that way, and the high streets are dying. There's a few bars, there's a few restaurants, there's a whole bunch of charity shops, and not much else. There are empty shop fronts and so on. You would think that some of that, not all of it, because some of it would be in a less than ideal location and some of the properties wouldn't be ideal, but you would think that converting some of that into living space would be a sensible way forward. But once again, you then have to get a change of use order from the local authority, and you have to jump through hoop upon bureaucratic hoop. Not a hope in hell have you got. So instead, the local authority will preside over an empty high street where the only thing that survives is charity shops. And that's it. That will be their source of income. They will be taking council tax income from charity shops, and that will be it. Everybody else will have gone online. And instead of using that as affordable housing or somewhere to temporarily shelter homeless people, no, they will just sit empty, and the council will be quite happy about that. I'm just beginning to push for container living at my place soon. Good luck. I wish you well with that, Jim. And I tell you what, it would be a fantastic thing to what's the word I'm looking for? To capture. There's a better word than that, but to capture on film. If you ever get around to doing that, I'd love to do it. I really would. The house I live in is absolutely fine, but I mean, cards on the table. I didn't plan to live here at all. There were plans for myself and my wife to move off down to the coast 4 years ago. My eldest daughter has left. My two other eldest twins were planning to move out. At the last minute, they didn't. We'd already sold our house. So we moved into rented accommodation, and here we are 3 and a bit years later, still in rented accommodation. Not a big deal, you know, the money's tucked away and everything else. But given the chance, excuse me, but given the chance, I'd love to live in one of those tiny homes. This was extreme, but my wife and I went to stay in a gypsy caravan down in Kent some years ago, probably 4 or 5 years ago, middle of summer, and I realised that was idyllic as well. There was a pond outside with fish jumping in it, and birds were singing and everything else. And basically, the gypsy caravan consisted of a bed, a tiny little sofa, and a kitchen area. All we needed. Yes, I would, indoor bathroom would have been handy, and so I'm not planning to go entirely off grid or anything like that. But the idea of living in a house where you have just what you need and no more, and that would be ideal for me. And bizarrely, I don't know why this is, I tend to sleep better in enclosed spaces. It's not a claustrophobia thing. In fact, I've probably got the complete opposite. The smaller the space, the better I seem to sleep. I've had some fantastic sleeps in tiny tents, in cars, and I don't know whether I could pull that off full time. I don't know. Jim Turner says, if it kicks off, I'll keep you. Please do that. Yeah, it would be fantastic to follow. Excuse me. I'm just going to mention this very quickly because I was speaking to him just yesterday. My old partner in crime, cameraman Matt Malloy, he's just breaking ground. Actually, well, that's not strictly true. He's converting a former gymnasium down near Bristol into a YouTube and film studio. Matt is a fantastic cameraman. He really is absolutely top notch. So congratulations, Matt, on that. But that would be absolutely fantastic to be able to have a private area. I mean, this is just a room in the house, so to have that. But Matt, for years, has been talking about actually building his own home and documenting. That was what I was talking about, documenting the whole thing from start to finish. Literally from the planning meetings and planning approvals, breaking the ground, erecting the thing, decorating the thing. Here's my finished home. He's never got round to it. There was a messy divorce in the middle, and it all got pushed back. Maybe one day. Right, enough of this. That is an hour and 18 minutes, which is way too long on the day when I've got an hour-long show tonight. If you are around tonight, please tune in 7 p.m. I apologise for the fact that it clashes with the football. I'm a football fan. I would have watched France and Morocco. Girone, my guest, is French. I'm sure he'd be watching the football, but the entire thing was scheduled by a Dutchman. And the Dutch are back at home. I'm not going to read too much into that, but that's the way it worked out. I'm off to the post office in a moment to send Gary Muirhead his cloth, but I'll be back here at 7 o'clock tonight. Hope to see some, if not all of you, then. Till then, everybody have a great day, and as everybody has warned you, please stay warm. It is bloody cold out there. See you tonight. All the best.